When Dark Elves threaten all of existence, keep a cool head, remember your training, and team up with the guy who tried to eradicate mankind in the Avengers. These are apparently the writings of the Asgardian Handbook. Thor: The Dark World. So Thor: The Dark World's the sequel to Thor, it's also a sequel to the Avengers, and it's all interwoven at this point. It's another Marvel movie and we're all pumped that it exists. And in Thor: The Dark World, it's after the Avengers, Loki's all imprisoned in Asgard. Thor's this wise, awesome, badass, really cool and collected leader that all the realms want to get behind. They're like, yeah, that guy. And now the Dark Elves are like, we've come back to just cover everything in darkness. We're Dark Elves. What else would they be doing? Usually elves are hippies, not these guys. They are dicks. So now Thor is reunited with Natalie Portman and now they're gonna stay the day together. Now this is a Thor movie for the people who didn't really particularly care for the first Thor movie, or at least enjoyed the first Thor movie, but they were like, Thor wasn't Thor for a lot of the movie and I wanted to see Thor do more Thor things. Now you see Thor do a lot of Thor things because he's Thor for the entire movie. He's not learning a lesson or anything. He's not mortal, no, he is an awesome god and he has his hammer that he throws and flies with. He's taking on Dark Elves. You can't be a normal human fleshy dude and do that shit. And for the most part, the movie's really enjoyable. I mean, you have gods fighting Dark Elves. What makes this movie? Let's face it, Loki's a big part of that. Tom Hiddleston as Loki just should be in every Marvel movie ever. Loki is like Marvel's answer to the Joker, but he's not quite a Joker ripoff. He just pulls it off. He's fun to watch. He always has a scheme. You don't know if you can trust the guy. You shouldn't trust the guy, but he's there. And let's face it, I like the character of Thor. Thor in this movie, I really like. He's like Superman. Thor in this movie risks everything. His reputation, his girlfriend, he risks it all to save lives. Gotta admit, when Superman was getting smacked through buildings, he didn't exactly do that. Thor is like Superman. You know, he's so good. I like heroes that are like that if they're not made to be boring, and Thor is just not boring to me. Because he learned his lesson in the first one. And the end of this movie is awesome. When it's all just, it's coming to a head and everything's going down. Thor's fighting dudes, he's swinging the hammer, he's like, wham! That was my mime hammer, and you know you saw it. When the fight's going down, I can only describe it as Portal 2 meets Mortal Kombat. The end of this movie is Portal Kombat, and I got no complaints about that. But the road leading up to it, I gotta admit, I was kind of like, yeah, okay, it's classic good guy, bad guy stuff with gods. Nothing really got me going. The movie has a lot of humor, and I thought about Iron Man 3 in that. Iron Man 3 had a lot of humor. It seems like these Avengers Phase 2 movies have more humor than the Avengers Phase 1 movies. I don't know if they're doing that on purpose, but it is a thing. And I laughed when the humor hit, but when the movie's done and you're reflecting on it, you're like, they should have cut back the humor in some parts. I mean, you look at the Avengers had a lot of humor in it, but when the shit was going down, it's like the movie knew. It was like, okay, now's not the time for humor, let's get real. But it doesn't change the fact that Thor: The Dark World's still enjoyable, it's really cool, the end was awesome. And you know, I liked the first Thor movie, and I gotta say, I liked the first Thor movie more than I liked Thor: The Dark World. I liked the premise of the first Thor movie. The main complaint that people had with it was actually what I liked about it. I liked the fact that Thor lost all of his power and he spent the entire movie trying to, prove himself and become the man he needs to be. And so when he does, you're like, yeah, you earned it. Reminded me of God of War 2 when Kratos lost all of his power. It's like, all right, now let's reattain the power. We saw Thor as a god who fell and he had to become a god again. By the end of this movie, it undeniably kicks ass, so I will say I would buy Thor: The Dark World on Blu-ray. This movie doesn't have a fake villains. Marvel movies learn from the past Marvel movies. So Thor: The Dark World, have you seen it? And what do you prefer, Thor or Thor: The Dark World? These are the relevant decisions you're gonna have to make, folks, if you want your rite of passage into adulthood. Whatever you think, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.